Good morning, Beena. Good morning.
Hope you are doing well.
Good
I can see
morning.
that you look fresh.
I am.
Yes, yes,
I
yes,
am. I
and it
am.
is showing.
I can't get the Instagram to it, which doesn't make
Okay, okay. You take your time and you are doing this while we can, of course, I can share my thoughts of the day. Okay, it's about this life, about this open as Norma says. Uh, okay, I hope that Norma you're here
sense.
and doing well. So just saying hi to you in advance. Uh, about this year. Yes, some people might say, oh, it's heavy. Oh, it's deep. Yes, it's too much. Exactly. It is heavy. It is deep. It is too much because it is moreness culture. This is moreness. How long we are going to just swim on surface? Collect the precious things, to see more, to explore more. You need to go a deep, in a deep, deep, deep thing. This is what we need to do. And this is what we are doing. Why just assume and take things on surface? Why? When we can actually explore more. So that's the fun. Yes, for some people in the beginning, oh my God, this is so deep. Yes, it is deep because you are not into this. Once you are becoming like you making it your own, then it will not be just a deep thing. It will be really interesting. I was experiencing the same. In the beginning, it was like, it was mind blowing. Still, it is mind blowing for me many times, but it was like, oh my God. And I was thinking where I was, what I was doing before, why I was not able to understand this. It's like, duh, but that duh, which is my power term also, it is it's an entry in my dictionary of power. Like, duh, because it was not duh before. It was not become duh until someone make it duh for me. And this is again, it's a very profound quote from Syl that okay, obvious is not obvious until you make it obvious. And it was like, yeah, now I was like, oh, it's duh. It was not duh. Absolutely not. I was not able to see that, but he made it duh for me. And then I was like, oh my God. Not only he, okay, I'm saying it because I was directly receiving from him, but it is in way of impeccability. The way of impeccability was making it duh for me. And it is going to make a lot of things in duh for me in future also, because it is not limited to just any subject or any particular topic. No, it is about life. Once you start understanding life, then things, no matter what, no matter how strange a subject is for you, it will become duh. It is a learning of how to learn new skills. Once you learn this key, it's a master key. Really, okay, it sounds like over dramatic, but it is a master key. Because once you have that, you can open any lock. If you want to be a doctor, and of course, if you are doing the studies and all that, once you will learn the capital R reading, you will become a fantastic doctor. If you want to be an artist, you will be an amazing artist. You will be an amazing artist because you know how to extract value. You will know how to extract value. And this is the skill. That's why I'm calling it a master key.
Access the more, not just extract value,
Exactly.
but access the more.
Yes, yes. You can actually have like many eyes and many ears to see and hear more. This is the ability one can acquire. Of course, anyone can acquire better than me. Of course, anyone can acquire through way of impeccability and Moreness project. I'm enjoying this because what people okay used to in my young age, in my teenage, it was like people used to ask that okay, what are your favorite topics? And we love to say things like okay, like specifics. Oh, I like this, and I like that. And it list no matter how long it is, always limited. But now when I ask myself, of course, no one else is asking. My friends are mature enough; they don't ask that these questions. But when I ask myself, what really interests me, what really inspires me, life inspires me. It is not anything specific. Yes. So now my perspectives are becoming way much broader than before.
Oh yeah.
And it was very limited before. And of course, I'm comparing to the previous one. Yes, of course, someday in future, I will compare my right now understanding. I was like, oh my God, what I was doing at that time. So, because
Exactly.
it's always learning and growing. So after a year, I will say, "Oh my God, this is what I was doing and thinking, and and, and projecting to the world." So
And that's something.
everything can be interesting for you if you learn how to
Yeah.
extract value and how to create moreness in it, and how to extract moreness in it, and to see and perceive moreness. That's the magic of learning. That's the magic of capital R reading. This is the magic of capital H hearing. And okay, I feel sometimes that because I keep uh, saying things about capital R reading, because this is what we are doing, and mentioning capital H hearing. But there are so many other things, like the superiority paradigm. I'm the one who was super reluctant, not interested in that. Okay, to read the superiority paradigm and do this. But what happens after that? I was a bit reluctant because I'm very cautious of my energy and attention. That where I'm focusing, where I'm paying my attention, where I'm investing my energy. So that's why I was cautious. That okay, I don't want to think about like okay superiority paradigm. But actually, it was not like that. Once you know how to pay precise, accurate, and relevant attention, then things will not come into your life randomly and haunt you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I was cautious, but I
Exactly.
was not
The
aware that
great
how to
power.
how to pay and invest relevant energy. And
The
again, it is
power
coming back
of
to
attention.
exactly appropriateness. So the superiority paradigm. I just want to say that because what I when I was reading. And Syl was reading Don Juan and Carlos' stories in their book. I was thinking about the superiority paradigm because sometimes people of wisdom, people of knowledge, some people just seem like they are they are coming from the superiority paradigm, and some really do. They do come from the superiority paradigm
And exactly.
because
And we see its absence in Don Juan, and we see
exactly
its presence in Carlos. Now, Carlos
yes,
isn't an overt BMN narcissist. A little bit,
no,
yes, but it's more the default that shows. Right? He just takes things for granted. Right? Just all of those the superiority paradigm, they're just there, right? It's not even aware of it. That's danger. That's the terribleness of it. Wonderful. All right,
yes,
Beena, I have
yes,
everything done and set up, and we'll start
yes.
reading. But this is very powerful. This is very, very powerful what you've been saying. It's to realize and be aware that what we perceive is not even close to all there is to perceive. Now we have an idea, but we don't really have an idea.
Okay,
Right?
just want to add a couple of sentences here because I know that okay we are getting late,
Please,
but
please. Oh, go ahead. I'm
why I
waiting for a
was
file to up to
why
open.
why I was mentioning superiority paradigm because we have a course for that and a whole program still offering. But
The psychology
why
of the superiority paradigm, right?
exactly why I'm mentioning here because I have been observing in my culture uh, out of love and respect sometimes without being aware, without being deliberately choosing that, they fell into this superiority paradigm and they created that this paradigm, the whole paradigm of superiority, and especially the gurus and the teachers concept, and also other concepts. And sometimes when people who were really sharing all those knowledge, all these this knowledge and wisdom, they don't have that intent. They don't have that idea of superiority. They were just sharing because they were exploring and they were excited about that. They were keen to learn and share. But when we read them, and some people, of course, after that, when people were reading, they were not paying attention to the intent. They've sometime most of
Correct.
them, okay, not most of them, some people uh, were just reading those things like I have found the answer, I have found the solution for everything. And this is where exactly I feel that the superiority just jumps in and then okay, yeah, now ego is going to play very smart here. And this is what I am seeing here, that people, especially when they deal with, when they work with the wisdom, knowledge, and these type of things, they are students and sometimes teachers also. They get into that. This is not what Don Juan is doing. Like he's doing. He's simply living his life, not keen to build any persona, nothing. He's not even keen to share more. He's just living his life. But Carlos, on the other hand, he is seeing that, okay, because I'm keen to learn, he must, he must teach me everything. And this is the superiority paradigm. No one is bound here. And we need to pay attention that if things are coming, accept it, receive it fully, without ego. But don't stress on it. Let it come. So, okay, Syl, you have a question on Facebook. Someone is keen to ask you something, but please continue. Start sharing screen.
Okay. Okay. You know what I'm going to do, Beena?
Yes.
We were halfway through the enemies, the four natural enemies of a person of knowledge.
Yes.
And I think what we're going to do is, instead of continuing exactly where we were, I want to start at the beginning of it. So that's one topic for the whole show today. Right?
Okay.
All right. You're taking care of that question, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna need you, so take care of it real quick, and then I can wait till be no worry, because
Okay.
I like to we read it alternatingly, right? So which is good. Somebody, it wasn't the question related to what we're talking about, right? To our capital reading, yes.
Mhm. Okay, so are you going to share screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here we are. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Sunday, 15 April 1962. All right. So you read the narrator and Carlos, and I'll read Don Juan.
Okay.
That's been working well for us so far,
Okay.
right? So we're
Yeah.
starting again. Our topic is the topic that we're coming back to is these four natural enemies of a person of power. Now, Don Juan says man of power, and later on in the books, Carlos asks him about this. He says, I'm a man, you're a man, that's why I say man. There's nothing sexist in it. But we're going to say person of knowledge, right? So we're going to read
Yes.
it that, because I struggle just to say man all the time.
I will try my
Something that I
best.
always do. Beena knows this. I always correct it whenever I encounter it.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to call it.
And I will try my
Right,
best to read it as person. Okay. But
right,
if
right,
here and
right.
there it happens, so please excuse
Yeah,
us.
it's all good.
Sunday, 15th April 1962. As I was getting ready to leave, I decided to ask him once more time about the enemies of a man of knowledge. I argued that I could
Person,
not return for
person,
some time.
person, person of
Yeah,
knowledge.
sorry. Enemies, okay. Enemies of a person of knowledge. I argued that I could not return for some time, and it would be a good idea to write down what he had to say and then think about it while I was away. He hesitated for a while, but then began to talk.
When a person starts to learn, they are never clear about their objectives. Their purpose is faulty. Their intent is vague. They hope for rewards that will never materialize, for they know nothing of the hardships of learning. They slowly begin to learn, bit by bit at first, then in big chunks. And their thoughts soon clash. What they learn is never what they pictured or imagined. And so they begin to be afraid. Learning is never what one expects. Each step of learning is a new task. And the fear the person is experiencing begins to mount mercilessly, unyieldingly. Their purpose becomes a battlefield. And thus they have tumbled upon the first of their natural enemies, fear, a terrible enemy, treacherous and difficult to overcome. It remains concealed to overcome. It remains concealed at every turn of the way, proud, waiting. And if the person terrified, they will never become a person of knowledge. They will perhaps be a bully or a harmless, scared person at any rate. They will be a defeated person. Their first enemy will have put an end to their craving.
And what can they do to overcome fear?
The answer is very simple. They must not run away. They must defy their fear, and in spite of it, they must take the next step in learning, and the next, and the next. They must be fully afraid, and yet they must not stop. That is the rule. And a moment will come when their first enemy retreats. The moment comes, the person can say without hesitation that they have defeated their first natural enemy.
Does this happen at once?
And they will crumble with learning until they wind up incapable of learning anything more.
What becomes of a person who is defeated in that way, Don Juan? Does they die as a result?
Do they die as a result? No,
Okay.
they don't die. Their second enemy has just stopped them cold from trying to become a man of knowledge. Instead, a person of knowledge. Instead, the person may turn into a buoyant warrior or a clown. Yet the clarity for which they have paid so dearly will never change to darkness or fear again. They will be clear as long as they live, but they will no longer learn or yearn for anything.
But what does they have to do to avoid being defeated?
They must do what they did with fear. They must defy their clarity and use it only to see, and wait patiently and measure carefully before taking new steps. They must think above all that their clarity is almost a mistake, and the moment will come when they will understand that their clarity was only a point before their eyes, and thus they will have overcome their second enemy and will arrive at a position where nothing can harm them anymore. This will not be a mistake. It will be power. One
They
moment.
will know it. Okay.
No, that's me still. I just wanted to fix that space again. They will know at this point that the power they have been pursuing for so long is finally theirs. They will do. They can do with it whatever they please. Their ally is at their command. This is their third enemy closing in on them, and suddenly, without knowing, they will certainly have lost the battle. Their enemy will have turned into a cruel. Their enemy will have turned them into a cruel, capricious person.
Well, will they lose their power?
No, they will never lose their clarity or their power.
What then will distinguish them from a man of knowledge?
Or a person of knowledge.
Yes.
What then will distinguish them from a person of knowledge? A person who is defeated by power dies without really knowing how to handle. Power is only a burden upon their faith. Such a person has no command over themselves and cannot tell when or how to use their power.
Is the defeat by any of these enemies a final defeat?
Of course, it is final. Once one of these enemies overpowers a man, there's nothing they can do. Once one of these enemies overpowers a person, there is nothing they can do.
Is it possible, for instance, that a person who is defeated by power may see their error and mend their ways?
No. Once a person gives in, they are free.
But what if uh, they are temporarily blinded by power and then refuses it?
That means the battle is still on. That means they are still trying to become a person of honor. A person that is defeated only when they no longer try and abandons themselves.
But then don't want it is possible that a person may abandon themselves to fear for years, but finally conquer it.
No, that is not true. If they give in to fear, they will never conquer it because they will shy away from learning and never try again. But But if a person tries to learn for years in the midst of their fear, they will eventually conquer it because they will never have really abandoned themselves to it.
Meet their third enemy, Don Juan. Meet their third enemy, Don Juan.
They must defy it deliberately. They have to come to realize the power they have seemingly conquered is in reality never theirs. They must keep themselves in line at all times, handling carefully and faithfully all that they have done. If they can see that clarity and power without the control over themselves are worse than mistakes, they will reach a point where everything is held in check. They will know then when and how to use their power, and thus they will have defeated their third enemy. The person will be by then at the end of their journey of learning, and almost without warning, they will come upon the last of their enemies, old age. This enemy is the cruelest of all, the one they won't be able to defeat completely, but will only fight away. This is the time when a person has no more fears, no more impatient clarity of mind, the time when all their power is in check, but also the time when they have an unyielding desire to rest. If they give in totally to this desire, to lie down and forget, if they soothe themselves in tiredness, they will have lost the last round, and the enemy will cut them down into a feeble old creature. Their desire to retreat will overrule all their clarity, their power, and their knowledge. But if the man sloughs off their tiredness and lives their fate through, they can then be called a person of knowledge, if only for the brief moment when they succeed in fighting off their last invincible enemy. That moment of clarity, power, and knowledge is enough.
Wow. Okay, I have a question about the
Yes,
clarity. I'm not having a clarity about the enemy, clarity as an enemy.
clarity of an enemy, it means that you basically, essentially, it is the same detriment when you see things from one perspective or limited perspectives. You think you see the whole, yeah, but then you
Like
start
there
looking
is
at
like
multiple
absence of
perspectives.
moreness.
Exactly. You may have a great clarity when you have an absence of moreness, but that's only because you're seeing a partial picture. But when we realize that when we do start to see the bigger picture, we're still not seeing the entire picture. And therefore we must
Yes.
defy that clarity. We must always think things through to the end. Perspective shift to multiple perspectives. And even then you may not know there are more perspectives. Right? This is very, very, very important. I don't know what happened to my voice now. Went all squirrely. Come on now. Yeah. I just want to copy the rest of this quote and add it to the quote file because we got
Okay, one
halfway.
more
So
thing, sir.
anything more? Yes, I'm listening, Beena.
Yes, okay. What they were saying about the time, like okay, oh, if someone were saying about the time, like okay, oh, if someone start doing and pursuing this path, and and they get defeated, but they realize that oh, this is not the thing. They were doing fine, and but suddenly they realize, like after some time, Don Juan is completely refusing this, that this cannot be done, undone. This
Well,
is something
right,
that
right. So
absolute.
there's a great subtle fear in what Don Juan says, right? In this that it's when you abandon yourself, which is a different thing to a retreat. So Don Juan So Don is not talking about the typical ups and downs of learning, right? Learning is this path that generally goes upward, but in that upward graph, there's dips and valleys. Okay, he's not talking about a retreat or where you consolidating or anything like that. He says when you abandon yourself to your enemy, that's a very different thing. When you abandon yourself to your fear or your clarity or your power, that's entirely different to a retreat. And when you abandon yourself to fear of clarity, then you stop learning and you lose the desire to learn.
Mm.
right? It's basically when your aspirations are no longer of any value to you and don't have a draw. That's when you know you've pretty much done.
Oh.
Yeah, is a corruption, right? It's a distortion. And when you get lost to power, it's hard to know because you're just being stupid all the time, right? You're getting caught up in superiority paradigm power rather than the realness of power. And the way to do this is to understand, like what Don Juan says, the power is never really yours. You must defy it, huh? And know that if you immerse in power, you're going to get consumed by power. So power is something that we seek, yes, to have the ability to use it when necessary, but it's also a
Mm.
last resort. Yeah? It's there to use when absolutely necessary. You want to avoid using power. Why? Because it's corrupt. The more you use it, the easier it is to get corrupt. Right? So that's all of these enemies. You got to defy them. Really, you got to use them and have them, but defy them and understand they are tools. And when we understand relativeness, overall perspective, right? Look at clarity. Yes, I'm clear compared to overall perspective, right? Look at clarity. Yes, I'm clear compared to nothing, but am I clear compared to the universe? Not so much, right? So when we not so much, right? So when we maintain this overview perspective, then that is a great safeguard against being sucked in and immersed into these enemies. Now, Beena, being pulled
Yes.
into a bubble is not quite the same as abandonment. Because when you abandon, you basically are saying you're letting go of that desire to get out of the bubble. And once you let go of the desire to get out of the bubble, understanding the floor plan of our house by looking in through the windows. First of all, I don't have to look in all the windows. I have to look in enough. However, when I do look in through enough windows and my brain is able to put together that floor plan, I cannot ever insist that it is exact. There may be a little hidden room that, in a little corner that you couldn't see, and it's non-obvious, it's non-logical, and well, you've drawn up a floor plan. That floor plan might be accurate and likely is, but it's not a guarantee. Right? Until you go into the house and check it and verify it, then only can you say for sure. Right? So clarity isn't about the clarity that comes from checking. Clarity as the power is the clarity that comes from saying, wow, I've got 99% of the data here, and clarity to defy it is typically you will have 99%, and that 99% typically will be the same as 100, but not always. Right? So if it's, 1 out of 100 times, 99%. So if it's, 1 out of 100 times, 99%, 1 out of 100 times you're going to be wrong. Problem with that one is that's the one time that it kills you. Okay? So we always have to keep this in mind. And that's the problem, 9%. But 99 is not 100, right? I mean, if you walk across the street without looking, 99% of the time you may get to the other side, but that's 100th side. But that 100th time, of course, it's going to kill you. You see? So you could say, yeah, but why do I need to look and search and do all this? Like I could just walk. This is something that really freaked me out when I came to America. People cross the street here and they just walk. Like they just expect the cars to stop. They don't even look at the cars. They just walk. And so many times he said, wow, if I have been paying attention and didn't see you there and just, got distracted by whatever, I would have ridden you over. And for sometimes those people, I kind of break very late and scare them a bit, but sometimes they don't even notice that I'm doing that. It's like, man, that's just such an arrogant oblivion. But they have facts on their side. They say, yeah, but it works. Look, I'm still alive. I've been doing this all my life. Of course, they're going to be a statistic. Some of them are going to be, not all of them, but some of them are going to be a statistic in a, drunken accident or somebody not paying attention, texting or whatever at some point. Yeah. Joseph
Yes.
says, fascinating. I always view through the prism of stages of personal growth. At a certain stage of growth, you internalize that all the lower stages that you used to put down have their place and are useful but limited. Precisely. No waste. Our old experiences, no matter how much we were stupid at the time, we were ignorant and we were just dumb and idiotic and whatever, right? Whatever terms you want to use. And we say, oh my goodness, was it such a bubble? But that's the value. You realize that you were in a bubble. And from that, you can start to notice bubbles in general. And in some way, we are always in a bubble. And that's clarity. Simply because you are in a bubble that's so huge that you can't see the sides of the bubble because, well, the bubble encompasses the entire world, you're still in a bubble. Yeah? So this is in conceptual terms. We automatically start shifting into big picture conceptionality because that's what conceptionality is. It is a bigger picture mindset, right? When you conceive of things, you see the big picture relative to that thing, but then we apply it to everything. And we specifically develop this mindset of overview perspective or universal perspective as much as we are able. Yes, yes, it makes a massive difference. And then, of course, we live without constant ignorance. We live without constant awareness of how much more there is. But this is Moreness-Culture doesn't lament this, where superiority paradigm culture does. So superiority paradigm, people don't want to know this more because the paradigm says you must have it all, you must have it all. And if you don't have it all, then you suck, then you're a loser, blah, blah, blah. So when people see moreness, they feel bad. Look at the unknown. In superiority paradigm, the unknown is like the worst thing ever. Moreness is simply the unknown, looking at it from the other side, from a positive perspective. There is equally much negative as there is positive potential in the unknown. The unknown may turn out to be 100% positive, it may turn out to be 100% negative. We have no idea. However, we can safely say that typically the unknown is more positive than negative. Why? Because we live, all of us, we live and we encounter the unknown regularly. Yes, sometimes the unknown kills people, but okay, on generally though we survive and thrive and multiply. And therefore the unknown is generally more positive than negative. And when we take this perspective, we now start to understand what moreness is. The example I like to use this is like if I say, wow, you know what, I won the $1 trillion lottery and I've built a spaceship and I'm going to go exploring off into space. Who would like to come with me where we go and just, venture out into the unknown? So I'm not so quite sure, venturing out into the unknown. Oh man, that doesn't sound very exciting. All right, I'll take a pass. Thank you. No mind. Off you can go on your own. But if I said, hey, you know what, I've got the spaceship. Let's go and explore the moreness of the solar system of the universe. All right, let's assume that we can explore the universe. Let's go and explore the moreness out there. Yeah, sign me up. I want moreness. Same exact activity. Saying unknown, saying moreness. The conception changes everything. Right? So when we start to understand that moreness is seeing the value, that the excitement, the joy, the discovery, the adventure, the awesome of life, of living. Yes, there may be danger, but of course we're going to be cautious. We're not going to be reckless. So we'll modify that. No matter how, conservative you may be, there's still danger. A meteor may fall on your head. You can't take safeguards against that. Sorry. Yeah. So you see, there's always some danger, and we just have to be realists about that. And when we see that bigger picture and we have a realism, say, well, okay, if it happens, it happens. Right? So this is very important to understand the power of moreness. And then, of course, too, when we are connected to moreness, we can never, ever possibly believe we know everything. And we'll always doubt our clarity because part of Moreness-Culture is knowing that there is always more. And this comes about in a very amusing way in the Biala series. Biala will elaborate on a topic, right? And then, like, she's talking to her friends, the aspirants, right? The little group there. And they're like listening very eagerly. And to other new nobles who have joined the group, because that's just the culture, right? it's a oral culture, and anybody can join at any time. There's no possibility of eavesdropping on anybody. Right? Whatever you say is there for everybody, whether they in your presence or not. Anyway, so she's a whole long and it was like, oh wow, cool. And then she like, oh, but there's more. And then her friend started saying, but there's always more. It's like a refrain, like the group, right? Like a chorus. There's always more. And this, it's part of Moreness culture. Yes, there's always more. But that's where the expression originates, just for fun. So Joseph says, so the enemy is then that clarity, that clarity is all there is. Exactly. Because when you get that clarity, you can so easily fall into the traps of the superiority paradigm. These enemies are all pure superiority paradigm enemies. Right? That's why I keep talking about the superiority paradigm. Observe lions when all day long, not just the clips that they show you on the nature show, right? They pick out the best. They don't show the sucky stuff, right? The sucky stuff of them constantly picking on each other, bullying each other, jockeying for hierarchy and position. That jockeying for hierarchy, that's from fear, right? The fear of being low down in the pecking order. And the bottom you can potentially starve. And fear of not the bottom you can potentially starve. And fear of not having status in our world. Fear of not getting people's approval. Oh, fear. The whole superiority paradigm is motivated by fear. That's it. You look at all bullies, dictators. Their psychology is absolutely governed by fear. Then you go, okay, now you get somebody who's very successful in the superiority paradigm. Yeah. Well, and they think they know what's going on. And as a result, they become great, enormous, big fools. Elon Musk is a great example. He thinks whatever he does is just wonderful. I mean, because he was very successful, he assumes he'll be successful in everything. And look at what he's now. Dreadful. I mean, it's just a sad case, right? So I think here's somebody who, is I don't know if clarity is specifically the enemy necessarily, because you may never have likely overcome fear in the first place. But there's a kind of a clarity from success, yeah, where you assume that you know what's going on. He's not the only one. There's a couple of other billionaires who fall into the same trap, right? They assume because they're successful in one thing, they are be successful in everything. And not just billionaires, but especially experts in a particular field. They think it carries over into all fields. Their clarity in their field makes them blind in any other field. It's a very common thing, right? So a very good way to understand clarity. And so, yes, exactly. So let's read again what Joseph said here. So the enemy is then that. This is itself a totality. Never. And this is where statistics come in, right? And when you understand it, you understand that even though something may be a small fraction, it's that even though something may be a small fraction, it's still a large number, for instance, right? So I may know 99% of the information in the world, but that 1% is a huge amount of information that I'm unaware of, right? It's a lot. It's a lot. So yes, exactly. Understanding it's not total. Understanding it's not total. Very cool. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Amazon here in a second. So one moment. Bringing me a very large delivery. Thank you, Amazon. Thank you. Very cool. Very cool. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Amazon. So yeah, this is very cool. Very useful comments. Very valuable comments there. Thank you, Joseph. When we have a query, even though I might not be able to answer the query, and I never assume that I can. It's never my perspective. But what I will do is provide perspectives. This I can guarantee, because we can all practice perspective shifting. And in the discussion, we come to get to more, right? And we come to discover more. And that's the magic of Moreness culture. It's never assuming one has the answers, but knowing that through the discussion, we are going to come to greater clarity. or less unclarity. Not that we're going to get clarity, but that we are going to be less unclear and more clear. More, not a totality. And that's part of the superiority paradigm, because it tends to have this mentality of opposites. You're either unclear and you're clear. Everything is always related to in opposites. If something is not black, then it must be white. Must be. Nonsense. It can be any blinking color. But this is part of superiority paradigm thinking. It's astonishing. It's astonishing, really. So, of course, if I'm clear, that means if I've ceased being unclear, that means I must be clear. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means you are slightly less unclear. Right? So when we understand that things are all well, then we don't fall into this trap, right? Or at least it's one of the safeguards against the trap. Of course, one of the other safeguards against the trap is simply impeccability, which at its core is best use of energy. And part of that is giving everything due respect. Part of that is giving everything due respect. Due. That word due is important. So when I give my clarity due respect, I say, yes, this is a very powerful tool. This really works for me. This helps me. But I cannot have that completeness to it, because it is not complete. Also, impeccability is about being thorough, disciplined, scrupulous, conscientious. When I'm thorough and scrupulous and diligent and conscientious, I know that I'm never done. When you research a topic on Google, okay, you look up the topic. Beena and I were having fun with this earlier, right? We were researching something. But when you put that search in there, how many pages do you get? Millions, right? Do you ever search through all those million pages? No. Why? Because it's diminishing returns, right? Once you get past, like, I don't know, 10 pages, or sometimes it's 1 or 2, whatever that number is, then suddenly the relevancy starts dropping quite dramatically. Now, oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but sometimes, you may need to go to page 100 or 200, and you may need to wade through a plethora of completely useless and irrelevant information. Why? Because your query is not satisfied, and you need to know, and you don't know, and because nobody knows, the answer isn't there, right? So now what? So now your thoroughness says, well, it isn't there. Well, okay, then I have to figure it out for myself. I have to create my own answer, or I have to find out how to live knowing I don't have the answer. Right? So when we are impeccable, we don't just take the early answers and say, oh, okay, well, this sounds good because this person is very sure of themselves saying this. Well, that's another problem with clarity, is as an enemy. It is to assume that the clarity of enemy. It is to assume that the clarity of others is absolute, and it's legitimate, and it's valid, and is to be trusted. Hell no. I mean, all those conspiracy theorists, they say things with the utmost of see what's going on. Yeah. And of course, generally, they do not. I say generally, see? Again, part of clarity is not lumping things into overall categories. That generalization is one of the greatest enemies that we can have, right? And it's part of unclarity. But when you get clear, you assume what you is generally so is always so, and that's a great mistake of clarity. And when it comes to conspiracy theories, they are generally a load of rubbish, but not always. I love this fact about conspiracy theories. Every now and then, one of them actually turns out to be true. Go and look up, actually research. It's really fascinating stuff, right? So it makes you realize that those conspiracy theories, and one of the reasons they are popular, is because they could be true. They could. Doesn't mean because they could, they are. So when we have this nuance, then we understand. Again, we come back to way of impeccability. Its core in terms of this is ADU, awareness, discernment, and understanding. We don't want to just have awareness about the thing. We want to have that discernment to see all the layers of the depths. But seeing all the layers and the depth, that's not enough. You got to put it all together till you get to capital U understanding. And even then, there's more. Why? because that understanding needs to be applied. Because without application, all that knowledge is useless. So a person of knowledge to me is a person of application. I rather call him a person of doing, a person of ability, a person of competence. That to me is better than a person of knowledge. Because a person of knowledge still implies it's theoretical all in the head. No, you gotta be able to use it. Right? So to me, it's a person of doing. It's a person of being, which now we get to the new nobility. That whole culture is all about is they will say, I am more, and very emphasized and when they write it, that's it. That's in all caps. And I am also, again, all caps, also enough. I am more, and I am also enough. Go together, not either or. Right? And that is one of the built-in tools for defying clarity and power and fear and effectiveness. Power and fear and effectiveness. Oh, we've got Aram Tiagi. I assume and hope I have pronounced that at least with some approximation of
It is
accuracy.
Aryan Tyagi.
There you go. Aryan Tiagi. Yes.
Yes.
And Aryan says, hey, I am thrilled to have you here, Aryan. This is most wonderful. And while we're saying hello and hi, let me check real quick and see on IG. We have Nasia. Hello again, Nasia. Very good to have you. We got Z Delaney and we got Il Sogno. Il Sogno di Chiara. Wow, nice name. Il Sogno di Chiara. No, very cool, very cool. And Nasia, I believe, Nasia, you've joined us quite a few times now. I'm always pleased to see people come back again. And of course, Sid is there, which is wonderful. You know, that's Beena on IG. So this is very cool. It's very, very cool. I'm really enjoying your comments. Everybody, I always enjoy when people come, especially like Joseph, right? Those are comments that if we pay attention and we learn to capital H here, I can, you know, if you just think about it, those are comments that come from being immersed in the topic, right? And that's what we want. This is what a capital R reading is, going deeper, going further, right? We got to get that understanding out of it. Like Carlos, he asked the questions, but you're never quite sure if he comes to the understanding because he never says so. He may or may not, right? So we don't know. But for ourselves, we have to come to that point where I'm satisfied that I understand it. And the only way I am satisfied is when my impeccability is satisfied. In other words, when I've been thorough, diligent, conscientious, scrupulous, going in it, and thinking it through to the end, and perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. That way, I start to connect to that greater whole, that floor plan, for instance, that's when looking at a house, right? Our brain, when it has multiple inputs, it creates, it puts together from all the data, it puts that moreness together. It's the most magical thing, our brain. I did this when you started to talk, right? Before you got to roughly 2 years old, when you suddenly the floodgates opened and you could jabber like a jabberwocky, right? 2 years old, when you suddenly the floodgates opened and you could jabber like a jabberwocky, right? Jabberwock, actually, to be technical, right? You could just do things like linearly. Sometimes it jumps, right? And it puts together things holistically. This is moreness. This is moreness when you start to tap into that holistic awareness, that holistic understanding of the more, putting it all together. The whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. It's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, I'll come back to you, Norma. I'll come back to you and finish reading later. Just doing the open right now. Later. There we go. All right, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Let's continue. Let's continue. Where are we? Where are we? You know what? I think actually, Beena, since this is the end of this chapter, actually, I believe, I think, yes, you see, we end of chapter 3 now. So we'll continue with chapter 4 tomorrow. But I want to give more space for commentary here, Beena. Beena, where'd Beena go? Beena's muted.
Yes, my network was giving me a hard time. So yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, please say again.
Oh, I was just saying that I think since we discussion between Carlos and Don Juan, or Don Juan's sharing, right? And Don Juan or Don Juan's sharing, right? Not teaching, sharing. I call it sharing. Others may call it teaching, but if you really listen to Don Juan, he's sharing. He may also call it teaching, but when he teaches, it's very specific. Sharing is different. He's sharing here. Anyway, at least in my mind. Right? So, I was saying I've just really been enjoying Joseph's comments, and there's more. I'll read them in a moment.
Yes.
But also, I want to ask Beena any commentary, right? Because we're at the end of chapter 3, so that's a good place to end.
Yes. Okay. So for me, the first thing very interesting when he was saying that okay, clarity is our enemy. Again, the understanding for me is that how valuable, how profound the vocabulary of conception is, and having like really precise thing, which is really interesting. That immediately I was like, what? Clarity is enemy, which is really interesting. That immediately I was like, what? Of translation. And later on, when he mentioned about power, which makes sense, which makes a lot of sense. But on the other hand, if someone is reading without having any understanding of Don Juan or the spiritual concepts, because on the other hand, he is actually encouraging Carlos to acquire power. What was the whole practice of an exercise of all those things which he was sharing before? It was about power. Again, it was like the appropriate use of power, the appropriateness, the lack of appropriateness is coming like, oh my God, right on my face. That see that how disastrous a knowledge can be, which is okay without having the concept of appropriateness.
Exactly.
Because yes, I was acquiring a power. Now you are saying it's an enemy because he was not able to communicate it. Okay, I'm not saying okay able. Of course, the raw power, the without having a concept of appropriateness, power can be really disastrous. It can be your enemy.
Exactly. It is why, for me, in what I've built up, as in the philosophy of appropriateness, or otherwise known as the A+ philosophy, appropriateness is the apex. It's the key, the core, the heart, the root. Right? Everything stems, results, and flows from appropriateness. Everything. That one concept is so incredibly powerful, because right there in those 4 enemies of power, the way to deal with them is to understand appropriateness, especially clarity and power. We understand appropriateness and live by appropriateness, then those enemies are going to have a hard time with you, because it's really inappropriateness which defeats you. Same thing, not learning to deal with fear, it's inappropriate. You have to at some point. Otherwise, you're always going to you're going to live in that fearful way, and you won't ever do anything. You won't venture forth. You're just going to become locked in a bubble, and that's not good at all. So yes, absolutely appropriateness. And for me, to good at all. So yes, absolutely appropriateness. And for me, to touch Joseph's comment here, which says a big part of what makes the teachings of Don Juan so powerful is the emphasis on applying the knowledge in the real world. Right? So for me, I always write that applying as capital A, applying, because when you capital A apply, you make it your own. You have to, and see, there's that extended conceptionality which now changes everything. Oh, when you get it, see, going to all the way to the understanding and then to application and looping all the way back around again. For me, from age 10, And I started this journey of learning, and that right at age 10, it was about pursuing awareness. It's a long story how I got to awareness. It came very quickly, but there's a lot more to it. But anyway, and so pursuing awareness, understanding awareness, I was horrified at how unaware I was. Right? When I became aware that I was unaware, how I continually fell into bubbles. It blew my mind. It was horrible. Right? And yeah, the key to all my learning, and I pursued learning with great avidness, right? With great fervor, with great energy. It was everything that I did all day long, every second, all the time. But what was important is that the learning had to be useful. That was the key for me. And I got frustrated that people say, "Oh, you know what? The secret to everything you need to do is in New York. You got to get there." Well, okay, I'm in Los Angeles now, but that's it. Just go to New York and you'll. But they never told you the steps. Like it was somehow obvious how to get from LA to New York. Yeah. Now, right, it's a very literal example, and it is relatively obvious. But when it comes to things that are like, not so obvious that we don't know, we've never traveled that route, we don't even know there is a route, right? It's just from this bubble of something to another complete different bubble. It's like there's no connecting link. In other words, not useful. This lack of usefulness, this was a big deal, which is why when I read Don Juan, all that he says about the power plants, it's interesting, but of no importance to me. Why? Because I can't use it. Yes, I'm unable to use it. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't make the effort to get to use it. But again, my reluctance was borne out later on because I understood the price one pays. So, but still, in the book though, we mustn't get confused by interest and useful. Useful is what matters, not interesting. The stuff on the power plot is fantastically useful, but not interesting. I mean, so fantastically interesting, but not useful. And because I can't replicate, I can't use it. So, Joseph says, from a native perspective, it's yes, when you hear all the stuff that people are saying, yes, but will it grow corn? In other words, can it be actually put to practical use? And so for me, everything is, and to some it sounds very theoretical, the new Moreness-Culture, it's about putting it to use. What we are doing here right now, this capital R reading, this is an application of Moreness, right? So when we understand that, yes, Moreness, and sometimes it is in the abstract, but when we do connect to abstract that gives us incredible value, now we have Moreness, right? So Moreness is that which provides value, but it's not always something physical that provides value. Sometimes we get value from the provides value. Sometimes we get value from the intangible, like we get value from beauty. You can't physically touch beauty. It doesn't exist as a physical object. Yet the beauty is incredibly valuable. See? So we have to be aware that yes, when we say practical value, what is the practical value of beauty? It is joy, it is delight, it is enhanced living. Passive practical value. Huh? So it's enhanced living. Passive practical value. Huh? So we have to have this discernment. So again, we go back to that ADU, awareness, discernment, understanding. Those are the fundamentals for application, right? Because otherwise we can just have awareness and think we know, we have no discernment, and then we get defeated by clarity. Yes. And then we add discernment and we get clarity, and then we get understanding when we start to have power, because when you really understand, you can apply it. Again, it's only temporary. Right? Very, very important. Very, very important. These four enemies have been on my mind for 40 years. Never forget. Because I don't just take it as a final word on the subject either. I say, is it really true that old age cannot be? Is it really so that these are there other enemies perhaps? Yeah? I personally feel that, I mentioned yesterday there were others that I feel come in, but you could translate it, but like belief. I think belief is an incredible enemy, as is habit. See, now where does habit fall into? Fear, clarity, power. Habit is a dreadful enemy. No. Right? And in way of impeccability, I talk about this. Right? So very, very big deal. Very big deal. Again, it is to me not ever assuming that because something has a lots of value and is tremendously valuable, like this whole four enemies. There's so much depth. I mean, you could say belief is clarity, but I think belief even comes in before fear. So does habit. If we continually in habits of being, if we're in the habit of assuming things are the way they appear to be, we never even get to be afraid sometimes. We can just be in a bubble of complacency, a bubble of cozy, a bubble of comfort. Right there, cozy and comfort, massive enemies. You're not afraid of anything, you're just very comfortable and you have no desire for moreness. You lose out by default, lose out by not being aware there is more, which is why Moreness-Culture is so good. Many, many reasons. Thank you massively, Joseph. Thank you massively. You know, when we get into this depth, and we again, you know, most people want to ask the question that Joseph asked. The first one. Why? Because they have too much fear. It's like I said to Elizabeth when she was on and she came on about fear. I said, you know, Elizabeth, you've done something that most others won't do. You overcame your fear. You defied your fear and you came on the show to ask about fear. Most won't even do that. Right? So yes, fear is a dreadful enemy because it stops us cold. But so is ignorance and so is unawareness, habit. Also great enemies, right? I think unawareness, oh man, it's most horrible. So, you know, once you become aware of awareness, everything changes. Now we can be in the bubbles, all sorts of bubbles. So to me, there are more enemies. Yes, there's a lot of them, but those are pretty good to start on this idea of enemies. Yeah, that you're thinking about, that there are things that greatly inhibit us and affect us. Yeah? All right. So for all those on Instagram watching, and on YouTube live also. I don't see if they are on YouTube watching live, but please comment. You know, please leave us a comment because the comments show up, and then we see them, and then we can respond. You know? So it helps us a lot. Comments make a big difference. They're very important. And don't be shy to ask, even no matter how stupid you may think your question is. Wanted to know a little more. Right? That's it. That's really all. Joseph wanted more. And look at the moreness that came. Look at the moreness that came from Joseph wanting more. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Most brilliant. Most brilliant. And see, Aaron, you said hey. And that's very awesome. Because otherwise we wouldn't know you here. You know? And we love it. We love involvement. Sharing is core to Moreness-Culture. You know, capital S sharing. It's a great message. You know, like that quote I said, our job is not to convince. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. No, no. I see my job as a human being is to share options or to share. When we share options, we're sharing choice. When we're sharing choice, we are promoting and enhancing the ability for somebody to enhance and develop their awareness. And to me, that's what the universe is all about. It's what life is all about. Enhancement and development of life, of awareness. Right? You can even say that's the meaning of life. When you think it through to the end, it's like, oh, duh, yeah. Because, you know, with the more awareness you have, the more you can deal with things like fear and clarity and power. And that's the key there, right? It takes a greater awareness than the bubble awareness that's created by the thing itself, right? Fear. I mean, we understand bubble awareness when it comes to fear, but we need to have that greater abstract ability to say, oh, clarity is also a bubble, or can also be a bubble, same with power. Right? So when we understand bubbles and awareness, and there's always more awareness, right? And we realize unawareness, a bubble. So awareness is absolutely the key to everything. Look at all the evil, all the trouble, always comes from unawareness. You know? And all those people who abuse their clarity and abuse their power and get lost to it, what was the result? What was the reason? I mean, not the result, the reason? Unawareness. So awareness, absolutely key. And again, you see, we have that power triangle in my dictionary of power. Remember the core, the three biggest ones there: appropriateness, and then we had attunement, and we had awareness. Because I just talked about this, where he says that the goal, the quest, that the goal, the quest, or I forget the exact words he says, but this idea, this ideal of self-wisdom is Lord. We get on this path of learning. That what to me become a person of knowledge. It's about acquiring self-wisdom. The moment you realize that's a flawed ideal, then everything expands. Then you start to say, I need to go outside of myself, beyond myself, past myself, in order to get what I need. And the only way to do that is via attunement. Now you start getting involved in attunement and everything that comes from there. That's why you have appropriateness, attunement, and awareness. And then those funnel down into application. Because you don't want to get lost in just theoretical stuff. No, that's fine. But those are the three key elements you need. Starting with appropriateness. That's all you need. Just this one word. That's the start of the Biala series, the very first chapter. It's called just one word. That's all you need. It's the only time that this one word is satisfying. It's fascinating. All right, this is too magical. This is too magical. Anything to add, Beena? Any commentary? Any questions? Any thoughts?
No, no, not right now, but that was wonderful because it gives a lot to think about. Not only that, okay, just think about, but also like kind of in retrospect, just go and see that, okay, where, how much and where I was actually driven by fear in so many of aspects of my life, how the fear was just coming into. I was assuming that we don't ask questions out of ego only, but when you said fear, I was like, wow, because the fear of so many things, of course, because the fear of so many things, of course, it can be. I was just thinking about always that, oh, we don't ask questions because we have some ego. And that's why I was deliberately asking questions, people. Sometimes just to counter my ego. I used to, and still I do ask questions because if you will not ask, okay, then you might get into this superiority mindset. So just to counter my ego, I was doing that. I was not aware that I was also countering my fear of being, oh yes, okay, I don't know anything and all that. So yes, so much value here. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing such things and asking questions. Of course, it was a lot, and see that, okay, we have now so much more than usual. So it is
Very
wonderful.
stimulating. Very stimulating.
Exactly.
Also, I stood up here so that you can see the entirety of the background image for today. Now,
Oh
it
yes.
sort of applies to a couple of sessions past or opens past, but this was an artist representation of Carlos and the spot, that you had to find the spot, the big deal of the spot. So anyway, I
Yes.
thought that was just cool. And,
Oh
again,
yes.
it doesn't apply specifically to today, but,
Oh
I
yes.
only found it after we'd already read that. But I thought, well, let me put it in now because the longer I wait, the less connected we are to it, right? So because it doesn't really come up again, the thing.
Okay.
All right, brilliant. I
Yes.
love
Thank
this.
you so much,
Love it
everyone,
all.
for joining
Thank you,
us. And
Joseph.
yes,
Yes.
thank you, Joseph. Thank you,
And
Norma.
now
And whoever
it's
is going to join us, share, watch us
yeah.
recorded, please do click like, subscribe, and share. And please ask questions. Ask questions. And if you see that, okay, we are not doing right, please that this tiny channel is doing something good and you want goodness in your life, please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
It's not about rewarding us. It is about training your own algorithm. Massive value. Massive value. All right. So now, Beena, it's time to go and harvest corn.
What? What?
It's time to go and harvest corn.
Harvest corn. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not aware of it, but okay. Yeah.
Okay, look what Joseph said. He said from a indigenous, it's
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yes.
yeah, that's all fine and well, but will it grow corn?
Ah.
Right?
Okay.
That's that application. It's the same thing as me saying
Yes.
always. Without
Yes.
application, it's all meaningless. That's the way
Exactly.
it's said there, right?
Oh
But to
yes. Oh,
me
very true.
now, I'm thinking that, and I'm going a little bit further to say now it's time to go and harvest the corn. That because we have been growing corn all the time that
Yes.
you and I have been together, we have been growing corn like crazy, right? But
Yes.
we
Yes.
also get to harvest the corn, and today we got to harvest corn with Joseph especially.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much, everyone. Please join us tomorrow. We will see that. Okay, maybe we will have a day off, or maybe we will change of time. We will make sure to inform everyone before. And if not, then see you guys Tuesday.
But we'll try
Okay.
to.
Bye.
We won't. We will definitely not be here tomorrow because I have the doctor's appointment in the morning.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's why. So see
I
you guys
may
Tuesday.
be done in time, so we might get back here in time, but we've got lots of
Otherwise,
stuff
we
to
will
do.
make
So
sure to inform
likely,
you guys beforehand. Yes. Okay.
likely will. Nonetheless,
Yes.
the recordings are always available. So if you miss a live, watch the recording. It's all the same.
Okay, so bye for
Wonderful,
now.
wonderful. All right, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, everybody.